All right, we'll try that again while we're not muted. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Web3 Weekly. My name is Nick, and I have the privilege today to bring up our first Web3 lawyer happening today. And we are here with Sid from Is It Legal, Sid? So allow me to introduce tonight's guest. And again, Web3 Weekly is brought to you by Degens. I want to make a big shout out to everybody watching and the Degens team working behind the scenes. But without further ado, Sid.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for hosting me. Really appreciate this opportunity. Let me know if you can hear me properly.
We can hear you. It was just I had my mic muted. It was ridiculous. We even tested this 10 minutes ago, but I put it on mute for a minute, didn't take it off. Anyways, here we are. We're rolling. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Shout out to everybody watching now. And again, Sid, pleasure to have you here, man. You and I have just met. We've had some great chats off camera, and I was really blown away with your background. So I thought perhaps first, before we dive into tonight's topic, which is Web3 legal basics for Degens, maybe you can paint a picture about yourself, and then maybe let us know how you got into the space.
For sure. So I run a law firm, and being the managing partner, my primary role is to strategize when people are in trouble. I got into the Web3 space probably back in 2021. We launched a couple of cryptocurrencies. We helped a couple of clients raise funds, and we figured there's more that we can do. And by the time we started networking in the Web3 space, reaching out to people through events like Token 2049, we realized people are getting in trouble for tax compliances, for being victims of P2P scams, and then being taxed by authorities. By some countries have taxation laws, but they still do not consider crypto as legal tender. Then there's capital gain tax, and there's no deductions in most countries on the losses that you make in trading. So we figured out, despite the jurisdictional issue, governments really don't like cryptocurrencies, frankly.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
I've worked in like a very different spectrum. We have worked with people who are so-called accused, right? We have also worked with banks. We have also worked with financial institutions, and also people who are victims of crypto scams. So that's something, that's the kind of background I come from. I have helped people deal with the narcotics cases. I've helped them with the cyber criminal cases. We help VCs with their contracts management and negotiations. We also help people recover their money from centralized exchanges as well. So there's a lot of legal nitty-gritties happening with crypto, but people are not really aware until they get into trouble.
Yeah, understood. And I love what you're doing. I mean, everyone that I've talked to who's been in the space for more than one cycle has probably, like 99% of the people I've talked to have fallen victim to some sort of scam or an attempted scam, right? As a lawyer, right? As a lawyer first, when you looked at from the outside, did you see like this is a need that you need to fill? I mean, like what drew, because you often see other people from other industries coming in, whether it's people who are leaving traditional finance and coming in, right? Coming into DeFi or coming into crypto in general. But I mean, I love how like realize what was like the catalyst that you were a lawyer first, right?
I think I lost you a bit there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm with you now.
All right, cool. Just what was the catalyst, aside from the scams, what was the catalyst to make you dive into Web3 legal? Because as you mentioned, right, it's not a popular field with governments. And I can imagine that there's a lot of lawyers out there that probably don't want to touch it yet until you get more clarity around regulation. So what made you jump in so quickly and with both feet?
So I basically come from a technical background. Had I not become a lawyer, I would have been an engineer, probably a software engineer. I have a background in entrepreneurship, and I've launched a couple of apps back in the day. I've raised funds, I've worked with VCs. I figured out that to actually represent somebody in cryptocurrencies or crypto-related matters, the lawyer would need some sort of expertise. Right? I had been trading. I had launched launched tokens for myself. So we figured if I can do it for myself, I can also do it for others, and that's when we started developing a niche for Is It Legal Set in the Web3 space. And we are trying to help people regardless of the borders and jurisdictions. We are well equipped with associates across the globe. So
Nice.
the basic catalyst was, the fact that lawyers need to be more competent in terms of understanding the technology, and they also have to sort of bring the judges and the courts to the same page as fast as possible.
Yeah,
So
that's a
even in
challenge.
India, we struggle with litigation. When we realize that judges are old, it's very hard to explain them how cryptocurrencies work. We have no idea the kind of analogies I have to come up during my hearings to explain how crypto and blockchain would work.
Yeah,
So
I
that
can
also
imagine.
it's interesting
Yeah,
because people are agreed and they also figure out that hey, we need somebody competent. I figure out this is where I should be paying more attention and carving out a niche for ourselves, despite the fact that we do all other kind of legal services. But this is something
yeah,
that really interests me, and I love the fact that you can be borderless with cryptocurrencies.
yeah.
Frankly, decentralization is the way to go.
Agreed, 100%. And I love how you found that sweet spot between your prior passions and expertise and your current career, because it really does seem like you've met that challenge skill balance, right? I come from an educational background and I feel the same way. I have to make a lot of analogies as well, whether I'm explaining Qualu to my friends, which is a Depend project. I have to use a lot of analogies like, do you know Google Maps? Well, it's kind of like Google Maps, but it's different, and better. So you do really have to meet people where they are, and even more so, and that's just for young people or for people that are like even like curious about the space. Even more so, challenging is the meeting the regulators or the people that have been in government for quite a long time that may not be up to speed with the technology. So I hear you when you mentioned that, like, it's best to come in from a point of view where you understand the tech first before you attempt to convince anybody, right? And that's where Web3 Degens comes into play, right? Like, they're an educational platform. We do these podcasts weekly. They do a lot of other great things, whether that's IRL events here in Bangkok or in Philippines. But
Right.
yeah, education is going to play a major role in mass adoption, and also, I mean, education is going to play a major role in understanding the ethics and legalities behind what is good and what is not good, what is legal, what is not good, what is a security, what is not security, right? I mean, you've probably heard it all. But before we dive into like some of the questions that you may get or have fielded from past clients, or even like the ones I'm going to ask you, I want to know, like, when you mentioned borderless, where are you currently now, and then where do you operate out of? Like, what kind of clients? Like, what's your demo for your clients and stuff like that?
So I'm based out of India, and we have associates across Dubai, Singapore, and Greece. The kind of clientele we have, it's very diverse. We serve NBFCs, which are non-banking financial institutions. We also work with non-profit organizations. We work with all kinds of crypto projects, meme coins, RWAs, Depends. We
Nice.
also work against centralized exchanges. We also work with and against a lot of VCs and investors. So this is all mostly across different jurisdictions. So crypto doesn't really care about boundaries. My client, who's an investor, could be in India, could be in Australia, and could be investing into a project that's in Netherlands. So it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's contracts that they need to execute properly. There's certain due diligence that needs to be exercised before they make any investments, especially if they are making these investments at an early stage of the project and they are in contact with the founders. It's a different ball game altogether if you are investing money on a decentralized spot trading platform like PancakeSwap, Uniswap, or something like that. On centralized exchange platforms, there you have to comply with AML and KYC laws. So that's also a different story altogether. So on and on, we figure out that there are multiple aspects that one need to figure out. Whenever they're getting into crypto, they need to pick sides. And My biggest challenge is to explain the authorities, hey, how does crypto work? How did the off ramping work? So I have so many Indian clients, so many, you know, not just Indian, even across US, so many people who get paid in crypto, and
Hmm.
when they off ramp money to their bank accounts, they get charged with all sorts of allegations because sometimes they do it through P2P, and P2P is a big scam these days. I mean,
Yeah,
you're never sure who's gonna send money into your bank account, whether that bank account is not marked with lien is something you can never be assured of.
that's right.
So that's how I figured that you need to be careful about centralized exchanges. Decentralized is okay. If you're dealing just in crypto assets, you're good to go. Nobody cares.
Mm.
Nobody knows it. Decentralized.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I mean, yeah, so many things to talk about from that alone. But when you mention centralized exchanges, my mind goes to, probably what a lot of people who aren't even following crypto has heard about, right, in the mainstream. When you mention centralized exchanges, my mind goes to FTX, and all the money that was lost from a lot of users that got
FTX,
burned.
yeah, recently Bazirex, and there were so many other cases back in the days.
Yeah. Were you working on any of those, or did you see a spike in volume after that last
I mean,
market?
frankly, I'm not really allowed to say on camera what clients I've worked with. Specifically,
Oh
can't
yeah,
take name.
yeah.
There are a lot of public cases that I have been a part of,
Mm.
but yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah,
it.
no worries, no worries. Not financial advice, and we're not gonna get Sid into any
Not even
legal trouble
financial
on this
advice. This is
tonight.
basically would be a breach of confidentiality. So, as an attorney,
Yeah,
I'm bound with statutory privileges.
yeah. But you
Don't
mentioned,
want to look
helping get.
at that, basically.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You mentioned helping get people's funds back, and a few months back, I had some friends who were stoked that they finally got money back, whether it was from BlockFi or someone helped them get it back from FTX, and they waited ages, but they had people like you on their side, and that's great, man, because this space moves so fast, and you often mistake decentralized exchanges centralized exchanges for something that is a wallet. And I have many of my friends who still keep their coins on their exchange. They might not have learned, or they might not have went through those hardships yet about not your keys, not your coins, but with this
It's
self
hard to
custody.
explain with these FPC wallets out there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very hard to explain people the concept of self custody.
Mhm.
Most people who are in blockchains, they barely understand how it works.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, right? You can say that, and they were like, "Well, what do you mean I have to, put all these words into my thumb drive and never show anyone this and that, right?" So a law of education still needs to ensue in order to have proper mass adoption. But I'm thankful that we have people like you that can help guide them and educate them along the way. Because yeah, I mean, I have so many friends that got wrecked from that. And that brings me to the next question, right? And this is not like necessarily personal towards what you're doing, but just maybe your insights and observations. Different parts of the world tend to move quicker, or let's say regulate sooner than others, right? There's like this phrase that I've heard time and time again where they say like, and I'm not wedded to it, so don't crush me if you don't agree with it, but um, or if it's offensive to anyone out there. But I've heard that they tend to say, um, America innovates, China duplicates, Europe regulates. And there's truth to some of that, but obviously it's just a way to encapsulate the fact that you have this entire world that is moving at different tempos, and some are over regulating. We see what's happening in Europe, and it's not even in Web3, right? But we just see this reach. There, it seems like Southeast Asia, and maybe a little bit looser on regulation, or a little bit more open to that. But at the same time, they almost have to be, because I believe, and maybe you can say some bits from India, but I believe here in Thailand, where I'm from, the space and the innovation and the scene evolves and moves so fast that you almost have to keep your finger on the pulse if you are a regulator, or if you are in the government, because you don't want to get left behind. And just like with narratives like Deep End or other emerging things like AI agents or AI in general. Um, it's those ones who dig deep, learn the product, learn the technicalities behind it, and start to regulate in a sensible way that keeps users safe. They're the ones that are going to be at the forefront of this innovation. And I don't think any country really wants to get left behind. And I think one way to get left behind is if you're over regulating and not really understanding the benefit, right?
So
What are your
if you
thoughts on
see,
that?
countries have already got CBDCs, which basically means the governments and their financial bodies are trying to launch their own cryptocurrencies, which will be sort of semi-centralized by the government. So which entirely reduces the concept of blockchain and decentralization to a negative. So
Yeah,
there's no point.
yeah,
So, but then again, they're trying to do this for their own benefit. Every government would want to regulate the kind of money that's flowing into their economy, and the fact that there are so many blockchains that we haven't even heard their names. There are so many blockchains operating on the dark web, and so much happening beyond what we can even see on these aggregator websites.
mm,
What are we going to do about
mm,
it? So the
yeah,
governments are trying to tackle the situation, trying to tackle money laundering, trying to tackle terrorism funding as well. They have their own narrative to push forward, but at the same time, at what cost?
yeah.
If it comes
Agreed.
at the cost of you losing your privacy, if it comes at the cost of you being charged taxes, enormously,
Mm,
there has to be some sort of an equilibrium between the government and the taxpayers, right? This is the most common struggle for people. So let it be Europe, let it be India, let it be US, any citizen who's paying taxes, who's off-ramping money, if they end
mm.
up paying capital gain taxes, how can the government say, hey, this is not a legal tender? How
Right.
can a government charge taxes if it's not something legal? So that's where they call it semi-regulated or unregulated. So which basically means it's neither illegal, but they're also not giving it a stance. But you have to understand the hypocrisy when they come ahead with CBDCs and when all of these governments would come ahead with taxation laws around virtual assets, and they have defined how virtual assets operate and what they are. How can you call it unregulated?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah, yeah.
so this
And
is the most common argument.
yeah, and we've seen that. We've seen some of that come into the public space as well, right? There's a lot of scare tactics that are being perpetuated, mostly by mainstream media and by governments, probably because they want to hold on to whatever bit of self-preservation they still have. But if you're zooming out enough, you see that that's happening across all industries, not just finance, right? It's happening with media,
Right.
happening with education. I mean, it happened with transportation, right? In terms of Uber or hotels with Airbnb. So this disruption is coming, whether they like it or not. And yeah, but it is very telling to see that some of them are actually almost stifling that innovation and stifling that progress to maybe for their own self benefit for a little bit longer, just to hang on to the legacy system for a little bit longer. Yeah, it's very interesting. Um, I think another thing that I was kind of going to bring up is the fact that you you have this convergence of so many other things right now. AI is dominating the narrative, not just in Web3, but around the world. But a big aspect of that is like unethical AI, right? No one's really even looking into that as well. So with these new innovations, there are going to come problems. There are blind spots that maybe we miss because we're innovating so fast. But at the same time, like how in your opinion, just like seeing the acceleration of this pace, like let's take AI. How do you view that? Because I'm of two minds of it. I think we are moving forward quickly, but if we don't have the proper education and foundation behind it, I think that you're going to end up deceiving people even more so than and maybe hindering the progress that we're making. But you know what I mean? And that will later bring us into meme coins, right? Which is a similar thing. It's like moving so fast, it's a new narrative, it's breached mainstream, but there's pros and cons to it, right? So AI first, and then diving into meme coins. What are your thoughts on that acceleration of progress without maybe proper education?
There's no proper answer to this, right? It's just something we're just gonna wait and see how it rolls out, because there are plenty of arguments. You could say that AI would take over, but you can also develop AI to, let it not take over. It's
Hmm.
I'm not gonna be generic about this conversation. It really requires a lot of discussion before you actually assume anything. You gotta understand how these models learn, what kind of data is being fed into it, how long are they gonna retain it, how fast can they crawl and absorb new data. The kind of models that are out there these days, they even have like biological machines, running operations for the AI.
Hmm.
They're exploring their own worlds.
Hmm.
So,
True.
I'm no expert on how this is gonna come out to be, but for
Hmm.
sure, I think it's gonna be exciting, and if put to good use, and if there are good enough regulations with some liberty, a lot can be achieved. I think it would even help us become healthier as humans.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think the same could be said about meme coins as well. Just allow it to play out, understand what it is, know the risk, do your own research, right? This is not financial advice, and this is not even legal advice from my side of things. But we did see today, or recently, maybe a couple of days ago, incoming President Donald Trump has launched an official meme coin. So now you're even at the point where meme coins went from this weird space
True,
from
true.
from one part of the web that now has now breached into government, and we literally have like the incoming president launching a meme coin right now, which I believe went to like almost, I don't know, like a pretty significant market cap. I can't say for sure what it is now, but it's like in the space and the time that it was launched, it's accelerated. I mean, it's like a billion or 20 billion dollar market. It's insane. I don't even know, but it was like first it just blew me away. That's like, oh, okay, so Trump's launched a meme coin. There's humor to that, but there's also legitimacy to that because that endorsement alone is going to get a lot more eyes on the space itself, right?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and say that this is a market of selling hopes at the end of the day. Everyone who's going to dive into the project is either
Mm,
because of the credibility that it's backed by the president,
mm.
or the fact that hey, this is going to make them a millionaire or whatever, right? They want to make the 10x, 100x to the moon, when Lambo and stuff like that. But it's
Oh yeah,
hope, right? So
yeah,
we're going to be cautious around that kind of thing because at the end of the day, if somebody makes profits on these meme coins, somebody's going to take those losses as well.
yeah. That's right. There's a zero sum game, and that's exactly what I would want my crypto lawyer to tell me as well if I was about to tell them that I was aping into Trump coin right now. That's a good point, and that's a good point for everyone out there listening, right?
You really gotta time your entry and your exit positions. I don't know, but probably have some advisors who can tell you when to ape in
Mm, mm.
and
Yeah,
what
yeah,
platform will you be using and how would you be off ramping it depending on what jurisdiction you're in. That's where I come in.
yeah,
Once you have made
yeah.
profit, you come to me and tell me, hey, Sid, we have made this XYZ profit. We need it in our bank accounts or maybe cash, whatever.
So let's dive into like some of those jurisdictions and stuff, and maybe you can, without disclosing anything that's confidential, but maybe in a roundabout way, tell me what kind of questions are you fielding? I love the name of your firm. I love that it's called "Is It Legal, Sid?" Because it sounds like that may be one of your frequently asked questions, right? but like beyond that, what kind of questions are you fielding and receiving on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis?
So the most common queries that I have from clients is, hey, how do I save money on taxes, frankly?
Ah, yeah. So how do I save money on taxes? No, go
Yeah.
ahead.
When somebody asks me this question, my question to them is, hey, are you going to off ramp this money as an individual? Are you going to off ramp this money as an entity? So, for example, if you own a project and if you have money that you need to pay your employees, maybe get your infrastructure in place, basically company's expenses, then it's a different ballgame. But
Mm,
let's say if you're a trader or maybe if you're an individual in some other job and you made some profits on meme coin or whatever trades, it could be like futures trading or spot wallet trading, doesn't matter.
mm,
How do you report your taxes? How do you file your annual returns? These are the kind of questions that then we go ahead and discuss with them.
nice.
Sometimes jurisdictions are an issue and people would want to offer up money directly for cash. For example, you have $100 USDT and you would want to have cash instead of getting this on your bank account so it remains anonymous. Some people use these kind of logistics and services out there in the market. So this saves
Mm,
them the accountability. It's also illegal if you get caught.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nobody
So
likes that.
never do it, never do it. But then again, these are the kind of queries that people usually come to me if they want to save
Hmm.
taxes. Big corporates or projects who recently, got funded or are expecting funding, and they ask me how to save taxes in future. So we help them
Hmm.
structure their companies and tell them, hey, these are the jurisdictions you can establish, an entity or incorporate a company and pay
Hmm.
taxes here in this country and figure out if your country where you reside and the country where you want to set up a company, if they have a double tax avoidance treaty. So we figure that
Hmm.
out. We figure out if these two countries have tax information exchange treaty further ahead. So
Hmm.
once we have done this basic research, we tell them, hey, this is how you need to incorporate. You'll need a couple of companies here and there, but you'll still be paying taxes, but probably on the lesser side.
Yeah, good. Oh, that's good to know. And everybody loves to save money on taxes.
So
Absolutely.
because this is not tax evasion, this is tax savings, this is tax planning.
Yeah, yeah, true. And we got to get used to that because this, again, as you mentioned, this space is not going away. This is just another layer on top of already something that we're habitually doing year after year, right? I mean, yeah, tax. I don't even want to get into taxes in America because, yeah, it's a nightmare. But
Yeah,
that
you
being
don't
said,
want to get taxes. This is for the accountants and the secretarial teams.
yeah,
I only get useful when there are disputes. So I'm where do
yeah,
people get into disputes. But then again, people who are wise enough, they come to our law firm and they're like, hey, we're gonna do this, this, this. Please help us secure ourselves. So these are the kind
yeah,
of people I actually enjoy working with because they have a vision and they are apprehending these issues ahead in time. So it
right,
makes sense to secure the future. Like once you're
right.
in trouble, it's only natural to when find the remedy.
And again, once that happens, you're probably going to leave the space, or you're going to have a bad taste in your mouth of the space in
Yes, there's,
itself.
there's gonna be a lot of damage which you cannot recover from if you don't have contingencies planned. If you're not planned for force majeure.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
where having your early ahead in your project comes in. I have so many projects who are into experimental stuff. I have
Hmm.
clients who are into racing. I have clients who are into gaming. I have clients who are into streaming platforms. People who are influencers and content creators. We have pharmaceutical companies. We
Hmm.
work with and against dealers, insurance companies. So the point being, we come across issues every day. Every day, all I hear is stories and how things went wrong. I know a
Hmm.
million ways shit can go wrong. Please pardon my language.
Yeah. No. No. It's okay. We can cuss
it,
here. It's
it,
all
it
right.
makes us very skeptical,
Yeah.
and it also makes me feel the burden of the responsibility that hey, I have to tell my clients all these things can go wrong. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic about things, but I
No.
need to give you this
You're
warning.
doing your due. Yeah, you're doing your due diligence. That's what lawyers should do, right? And that's often what maybe degens don't necessarily do. And when I say degens, I'm slightly speaking for myself as well. Um, we're gonna take a quick break. I want to dive in when we come back for the break. I want to dive into not just the users that you're helping, but the fact that you're also really instrumental behind the scenes with startups and the teams and even like setting up these teams so that they have the proper foundation. But we're going to take a quick break, and everybody out there watching in the Musegan universe, please drop your questions in. We got a chance to talk to a Web3 lawyer here, and ask away. So when you come back, we're going to throw it over to you guys a bit, and you can ask your own questions to Sid. But we will be back after this short message from Muzegan with Sid from Is It Legal, Sid?
in the blockchain space, there's so much opportunities for people to bring their ideas.
So kung meron kang pera and you want to be wealthy in your lifetime, kailangan mo mag-zero in dun sa mga new technology. As traders, no, as forever students of the market, kailangan tayo rin nag-evolve.
Why are we into Bitcoin? It's because we genuinely believe that humanity needs a better form of money that is not dollars or pesos or any of these things. You want money that we can actually hold on to, and this will be our life savings, and it will maintain its value against the things you want.
And we're back, and I'm not on mute this time, so I'm going to do a proper introduction. My name is Nick. Welcome to another episode of Web3 Weekly. I'm fortunate enough to be talking to Sid, a Web3 lawyer from the firm Is It Legal, Sid? And Sid and I were just touching base on user experience and how to protect users, how to help them save money on their taxes. And we have opportunities for anyone out there listening to speak to Sid, ask their own questions to him, get some basic legal advice, right? And but no financial advice. I was talking about user experience, and then before the break, we were talking a little bit about how you also help startups and teams. And after being in the space for quite a while, you know the space very well. Tell me what kind of things that you do with the startups and stuff, and that can be anything from checking contracts to auditing or letting them know if their DAO is legit or if it's a Ponzi. But maybe you can walk us through some examples and then touch on a little bit of like maybe your favorite things to do in the space regarding the law in crypto.
So, very frankly, I work mostly with crypto projects, people who are either launching a token or any kind of Web3-related project, doesn't matter. We help them with the compliances, we also advise them on operations, and we also tell them, hey, from our past experience, we have figured this could go wrong, and this is what you need to prepare ahead in time for. So we help them strategize, and this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. We help with VCs as well. So, for example, if my VC wants to invest in 5 projects this month, they would want me to vet their contracts ahead in time. They would want me to negotiate those terms with the projects within which my VCs would invest. And we also need to make sure that there's a proper mechanism to make sure that they're following their milestones, they're accomplishing their key tasks. And there's also a way for us to recover our money if something goes bad, which we don't really do, but sometimes there are scenarios where you realize that the company might be getting in trouble and you need to back out. So we need to also get indemnities for ourselves. So let's say if they end up doing something illegal, we don't want to be accountable for how they used our money.
That's right. So you also,
what it matters.
Yeah. So you also have to continue to keep your finger on the pulse, right? You also have to continue to kind of understand where that line is, and make sure that you yourself is not even associated to anyone crossing it. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes depends on the jurisdiction of the projects in which our clients would invest. The authorities in the project's jurisdiction might ask, hey, what's the source of funds? How did XYZ project get money? So that's where my VCs are answerable. They have to show their incorporation certificates. They have to tell them, hey, this is how we got the money. Sometimes they are able to disclose these figures, sometimes they're not. So that's when things get tricky, because crypto is a tricky space.
100%. We got a great question from Anne. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. What did you say?
Yeah, so basically everyone has some sort of connections with decentralized wallets once you get into crypto. Despite the fact that you are building a legit project, somebody might just send you funds from a decentralized wallet. Maybe it could be your investor, it could be your VC investor or traders. We don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
So there are general problems, but to deep down into them, we need to figure out what you're planning, what's your modus operandi, what's your business.
Nice. Nice. So we got a great question from Anne. Shout out to Anne for kicking off the AMA. She's asking, who is legally responsible for the actions of a DAO?
So, when it comes to who's responsible, the people who cast vote in the DAO are responsible from a moral and a, jurisprudence point of view. But essentially, what a DAO is, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. It's basically a company with no registration or records. It's just the community running and casting votes to figure out what needs to be done. So it's the people who are casting votes. They are liable for the whatever's happening, whatever decisions they're taking. But how do you execute penalties? How do you execute your disciplinary actions, or how do you make somebody accountable in a DAO? Is something that needs to be worked on. So, for example, if somebody is able to cast a vote in DAO, it basically means they must have some shareholding, some sort of tokens or assets that they might have stake. That's how they have, the ability to cast a vote. So
Yeah.
maybe if something goes wrong, you can make them accountable with some sort of internal punitive measures or some sort of disciplinary actions, which have to be worked.
Would it be weighted on, like, let's say I'm in the DAO, but I have a very minimal stake and I don't have much of a voice, but I am in the DAO, but it goes in a different direction because maybe there's people who have a lot more of the majority voice and ownership, or at stake in the DAO. Would it be weighted a bit on those who have more, or is it just like you're in it and you're liable, or you're accountable?
So most DAOs these days, they either have a trust foundation or some sort of NPO operating behind them, right? And these are the ones where you can actually put faces to decisions. And when it's a structure like this, you can even report authorities. But when it's an entirely decentralized and anonymous structure, and when it's hard to put faces to those wallets, it gets difficult to get people accountable. So you gotta be cautious about the kinds of DAO you're associating yourself. How much of your information are you revealing on the decentralized space? It's very cautious.
Yeah, and that seems to be the theme behind our chat today. It's like, just do your research, be cautious, go in with some healthy skepticism, because yes, there's money to be made, but you don't want to end up, like SBF or CZ, and you certainly don't want to. You don't want to risk it and do something, whether or not you think you're anonymous, or whether or not it's because you have a PFP on your profile and no one knows your name, you're not doxxed maybe. You just don't want to cross that line, because there is so much positivity out there and there is so much like great opportunity there. So it would be a shame to just jump into something that feels a little bit sus. So aside from that, like, do you have any, like, are there kind of how to say, like, I don't want to say like mission statements, or are there any of your like go-to bits of advice that you were just saying to people, like, aside from being cautious, like, what else would you tell someone,
So
especially someone
first thing
new to the
first,
space? Yeah.
first thing first, always start with a decentralized wallet.
Hmm.
Do not, download an app on Play Store, KYC yourself, associate your bank accounts. If you want to explore cryptocurrencies, you should have it the way it is. Go decentralized, and once you have some understanding how the space is working, then get into more things. And something that you always need to remember is, in crypto, don't forget to ask questions. Don't forget to reach out to the teams. They're all
Yeah.
accessible. That's the beauty of Web3.
Yeah,
Go to
that
their
is. That
territory,
really is.
tag them, ask them questions. Don't be shy.
Absolutely.
These
And that should be a red flag. If they're not answering your questions, that's a red flag, right? We don't do that here. We answer all questions here. We got another one from Ray, and on the sticking with the topic of DAOs, could you help Ray understand what even is a DAO, and how does it differ to regular companies? You touched on it a bit, right? But there's also
Sure.
there was also that cycle of, I don't know, a few years back, where everything was a DAO, right? And maybe we even overused the term, and a lot of people misunderstood it, because there were a lot of DAOs that weren't DAOs. But for myself and for Ray out there, what is a DAO, and how does it differ from regular companies?
So, And first have to pin down the keyword decentralized, right? A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. When we use the keyword decentralized, it simply means that this body, this entity is not going to report to anyone because it is not centralized. Decentralized is the keyword. And any other company, any other entity, be it a private limited company, be it an NGO, be it a one-person proprietorship or a LLP or a firm, all of them report to the respective registrars, to their respective ministries, to their respective governments. But a decentralized autonomous organization is not reporting to anyone. It's decentralized.
True.
It's being done by the votes that are being casted by the people who hold stake in the DAO. That's the main difference. So basically, a company that is not registered with any entity and does not file any taxes, does not do any returns on like their compliances, these are DAOs. But then again, it doesn't mean that they are sham companies or fake projects. There are definitely DAOs which are operating in very good conditions, and many DAOs have launched very good projects. Many VCs have a DAO structure. So it's ultimately also useful when you want to make sure that people make the right choices by themselves. This kind of a system is put in place because these votes, they are immutable. You cannot go back and change the records.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. They're immutable is something again that you just can't take back. Pros and cons of the space, you know what I mean? But again, going back to just making sure that you understand what you're jumping into, and it's not difficult. Like Sid said, you can ask the questions. You can ask Muzegan, you can ask myself, you can reach out to Sid. That beauty of Web3 in this space in general is that it is so open and willing to educate. I mean, I've never met anyone online after asking a question that said, no, I'm not going to answer that for you. And if I did, it was probably like from a meme coin Telegram that I got booted from. And then that was like my own doing, right? But like questions fuel the space because it helps educate and helps strengthen the network. It helps strengthen the entire Web3 space, and then people pay it forward and they give back.
Out there, if you don't ask questions, you're not doing justice to yourself. It's your money. You gotta be very cautious about it. It doesn't matter if you're spending $10 or $10 million. You still gotta ask the same questions because ultimately it's due diligence. It's an exercise. It's a practice that you have to learn. It's something that you need to keep doing if you want to be in the Web3 space. You cannot be like, hey, today I feel like gambling on this token. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, they're going into the jungle backwards with your eyes closed if you're gonna do it that way. It's not gonna work, right? Yeah. We have another question from Mitt. Mitt asks, does the legal uncertainties make it harder for people to trust DAOs? And I wonder if this is a question that is maybe
it's more of an emotional question, I would say.
Yeah.
Because
from region. Does it differ from region?
Some people are risk averse. Some people have a different appetite for risks. It's just depending on how you feel about using your funds and how much time do you have to do the research. Most time people have this concept of FOMO. They feel like, hey, if I don't jump in right now, I might just lose the opportunity, which should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah, I agree.
So and I believe a risk, right?
Yeah, and I think developing your own system for that, finding something that works for you. Unfortunately, we're all going to learn from trial and error at time to time, but developing your own system before you ape into a project or before you invest into something.
I would say cause chaos in the Telegram groups. Between you and me, and if I would treat all of these viewers as my clients, I would advise them, hey, please go ahead in these Telegram groups and ask them any kind of questions you may want to. It's better that you ask questions upfront in the public because then they're more accountable for answering your questions, and then they have more pressure over them. And you're not doing anything illegal. You're just asking them questions, which is like if they want your funds, they ought to answer these questions.
Right, like who is the dev and where did he go? Like, you know what I mean, or something like that, right? Exactly. From like all those questions, but yeah, so that's great because it brings me into the next question that I had personally, which is about red flags. Maybe from your own personal experience, and also from maybe the experience that you've learned and others have shared from you, what are some red flags that you can pick up on really quickly? Like, I know one for me. For example, it's like when immediately a coin gets launched and maybe I'm aping into it, and then all of a sudden 5 hours later it's like, hey guys, we're a community takeover now. And it's like, no, wait a second, like that's very quick to bounce and to leave the community, right? So I mean, you do see successful community takeover coins, but there was a trend for a while where you launched a token or someone launched a token anonymously, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're a CTO now, and that just sounds like we're bastardizing the word, and we're like now using that as a way to say, hey, I've kind of slowly rubbed you. It's up to you guys now. But that's a red flag that I've had to learn the hard way from trial and error. What are some red flags that maybe you've observed?
So your question comes from a perspective of investing in, decentralized markets or investing in spot markets, So in that sense, the major red flags would be the team being entirely anonymous. Major red flag. Depends what kind of project they are building. If it's a project that's something that protects liberty, free speech, and they ought to be anonymous for their own security reasons, makes sense. If it's a gambling app, that's investing in them is of course always a gamble, because the house is always in profit if they are at least doxed to you. Let's say they're not entirely anonymous, but they at least dox themselves, or maybe base their operations out of a country where gambling is legal. It's a good bet. It's a better bet, it's a safer bet. So the other kind of red flags you need to be assured of. So if the teams are anonymous, ask them questions. Why are they anonymous? Why is it needed? And then then call shots. Another red flag would be to figure out if they're using market makers. Okay, I'll tell you why. You must have seen that market makers have got into trouble. This keyword market makers is actually a synonym for market manipulation. And the authorities are taking a dig on this now. It's like insider trading. Just how pure markets have insider trading, these market makers would inflate your numbers, they'll increase your volume. So it would seem like, hey, you have a healthy chart and there would be no gaps in the chart. So you run an ad campaign. I mean, not you, basically how the modus operandi is. A project would run a couple of ad campaigns, you'll get some outside home marketing done, post a couple of videos, get some influencers to repost it, and then also use market makers simultaneously to get people to ape into it because of the FOMO. They won't realize that, hey, the chart is not going up because of the campaigns. It's going up because of the inflation that's being done by the MMs.
Yeah. And I look at that too, like, wallet count, right? I mean, even those things could be tricky and deceiving from time to time, right? Because you could have someone with multiple wallet.
Sorry, and one last thing I would recommend is always look for the past experience of the team, or maybe if team is new, if they have any advisors who have prior experience who are helping them out, so checking their credentials and credibility would also make some sense. But this is not about the red flag. It's just like a due diligence exercise that you should consider. But I gave you the red flags.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can identify the red flags from that, and that's also how you build a system, right? Like, that's what I would do. I would look into the history of the team, find out if they're docs, look into perhaps maybe their social presence to see if they're bots or if they have real followers. I no longer just trust accounts that have thousands of followers. I like to trust the ones that have maybe people that I know are following them. So again, if I've met someone in the space and I've spent time with them and I trust them, and if they're following them, that adds to my system a bit more credibility. But that being said, there's still risks, and that's just one aspect of the things that you have to check. Where can we find you on social media so that even after this stream is over, people can follow you and people? I don't want to. I hope I don't flood your inbox, but at the same time, I also kind of encourage everybody.
If these people try end up reaching me, I'm gonna have to ask my interns to spam them with memes throughout the day.
Yeah, right. You need something.
Find me on Instagram.
Nice. Yeah. So I mean, maybe you can share your LinkedIn with us, and we can pop that up, or we can also put it in the comments Dex. But would love to be able to, bring my network to you because it affects everybody. Everybody's out there assuming positive intent, and I love that you're being the voice of reason behind this. So because again, it's off-putting to hear a friend get scammed, or it's demoralizing when you yourself get scammed. It's even more so when you do it when you get too emotionally involved and you forget to treat this like a learning process, and all learning processes you have to ask those questions, you have to do the due diligence, you have to do your research. But perhaps we can pop up Sid's website or ways that we can find Sid, so that if anyone out there maybe who doesn't have that network, and doesn't necessarily have a system yet to run through when they are innovating or exploring the space, that they could reach out to Sid.
I'd be more than happy to, volunteer myself to spreading more awareness about Web3, because I'm really hopeful that everyone has a chance, has an opportunity to make, money in crypto, very frankly put. But of course, you're gonna lose money when you take risks. But then again, you'll not be losing more than what you're investing. So I would say take those risks, but still don't forget to exercise due diligence. Make it a habit. Sooner or later, everyone's gonna find something in Web3 for themselves, and Web3 is being integrated in every industry. Even the governments are using blockchains to file complaints. At least that's happening in India, and even a lot of ministries and companies that are public companies, they're using blockchains for their operations. So it has a future. Everyone has a chance. Sorry, did you just?
They're already blowing you up. You're already getting questions. So we just saw Sid's Instagram, and now we're pivoting over to, for those of you who use X.
That's the most difficult part. I'm not really good with the social media, but amazing. Thank you. You just reminded me to pull up a banner for my social media.
You're all good. It's all good. We're here for legal advice, not for aesthetics, buddy. So it's okay.
That's true. I'm better with drafting than my designs.
Yeah, nice one. No worries. I mean, again, we're live on Facebook right now, and we're on YouTube as well. But you have 3 different platforms outside of this that you can connect with Sid on. You can connect with him on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on X. Connect with myself. Connect with Muzegan. We're just about to wrap up because we're about to reach the top of the hour. I had one more question, but if there's anyone else who's in the comments and wants to ask something, feel free to drop it in. If you don't catch us live, and you're watching the recording, know that you could reach out to Sid or drop a comment below here with everybody else who's watching. Shout out to Henry. Shout out to Dino, GM guys. I see you. We hear you.
GM.
Appreciate all the things. My last question. And I have so many more, so I hope that we can bring you back, because I have so many more questions about Cayman Islands and Dubai and circumventing some of these things and stuff. But my last question would be...
It's never circumventing. It's not circumventing, it's planning.
Okay, is that lawyer speak? I like that. No, that's cool. No, true, because let me dive into it. Like, I have heard a lot of people, when they're launching their startups, they've asked, like, where should we launch our startups from? Some places, such as the Cayman Islands or maybe Dubai or Abu Dhabi, are a little bit more favorable. Like, are you getting some of that as well? Do you see that too?
Yes, we do that.
Yeah,
we do that. We do a lot of incorporations for projects offshore. It's like the core of our jobs to help them save taxes.
Yeah, and it's quite common, right? It's not something that maybe
is pretty common,
as nefarious as it sounds, right? Yeah.
It also helps them with them building their IPR. It also helps them with solving disputes easily when things are cross-borders. So
nice.
It's an important thing to plan ahead in time about how you want to incorporate yourself and how do you want to structure your companies, and which company would want to hold the assets, which company would want to hold the IPR, which company would do the execution of the job, which company would pay the employees. You got to plan all of that and structure all of that. It's not as simple as it's for regular SaaS and PaaS projects. It's a bit different to Web3 projects.
Nice. So my last question also is it's kind of similar to that, right? I was just on a podcast a couple nights ago with some awesome legends from IoTex, from Kuala, Arcanum Ventures, and we were just kind of talking about narratives, talking about where the space is going, perhaps in 2025. Throughout the year, AI agents are still dominating the space. Depend, RWAs, both seem to be kind of emerging as close seconds, and all of these things are great for the space, right? But they each bring their own legal issues. A lot of talk about tokenomics we brought up, and someone mentioned that, like, these days there are people that are still really keen to get involved in Web3, but they see a lot of benefits with not launching a token and almost being made more of a SaaS for Web3, or like almost Web3 adjacent. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is the token still a barrier, or is that something that you help people with? Or I know you touched on that, but is it still like, is that going to be a trend where people are going to be like, I'm done with launching a token because I don't want to get caught up in this. It's less friction if I do it this way. Or is that another short-sighted, get to market quick mentality?
This basically brings us to the very basic question everyone keeps asking in the Web3 space. Hey, what's the utility of the token, right? So it ultimately boils down, why do you even need a token? If you have a solid answer for that, you need a tokenomics in place, you need all of that in place. But if you can do away that token and still use blockchain as a technology for leveraging whatever you need it for, that's a different ballgame altogether.
Yeah, as we see
Because
thousands
if
and
you're not
thousands.
making money over the blockchain, you're just using the technology for the sake of it being immutable. For example, let's say you are an insurance company and you decide to give out your insurance documents as NFTs instead of giving out soft copies, which are hard to trace and are also easy to manipulate and tamper with. What are you gonna do? You're just using the technology. They're just, as a consumer, you'll still pay the NBFC or the insurance company in their bank accounts. You can pay them in crypto, but doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what you get as an NFT is not something you're gonna be able to trade. You're not gonna be able to program it. It's just a receipt that's on a blockchain. So it's immutable.
Yes.
It's more secure. So in that sense, you can still use the technology and not launch a token, not make it something that you're gonna, like an NFT would be on OpenSea or some platform like that.
Yeah.
The possibilities out there. People are exploring a lot of things, but really depends. What's the utility? Why do you need the token in the first place? If a project is able to answer that, then you need a token. If you don't have an answer to this, figure out what you're gonna do with blockchains in your project.
Yeah, and you know what? That's another great question for everyone out there listening, and even for myself to reflect on with my own systems. Ask that question. Not only reaching out to the team and finding out what they've done in the past, but ask that question, like, does this project need a token? And if it doesn't fully come across that the token has utility or that it's needed, and it doesn't have any components of DPEN or another aspect that adds real value or that is real, maybe, just maybe, then it's probably not necessarily something that is sustainable. Obviously, meme coins contradict that, but we know that meme coins run on hype, and that's a different risk altogether. But yeah, that might be another thing.
I've come across so many meme coins with purpose and with utility, right? It could be based on a meme, but the token can still be used for a purpose, right? At the end of the day, you can use a token to tokenize a service.
Yeah.
So does it
But we
matter
are
what's the
seeing
name? What's your ticket, right? If you have that kind of money and if you're able to figure out how to put it at good use, if you're able to solve a problem with that token, doesn't matter if it's a meme token, right? There are so many projects who don't have really a vision in terms of what the token utility would be, but they end up developing it once they have the money and the kind of advisory and support.
Yeah. Well, we sell that, right? And this goes back to the maturity and evolution of the meme coin space, right? What started off as jokes and awesome JPEGs online that made you giggle is now, like, you see, I think there was like some successful agents, some AI agents launched through Pump.Fun, and they have massive utility. They're dominating not only the social movement, but they're dominating the space, online. And yeah, you are seeing, you just got to sift through it. It goes back to having a system, goes back to doing your research, going back to asking the right questions. You just got to sift through it because there's an abundance of coins out there now.
True.
And there are some real value there still in coins. And I do see that as someone who's been building, I do see the benefit of maybe starting off as a meme to gather that attention, because we are in the attention economy. You're gathering that attention, and then you're actually using the meme coin platform as a way to elevate what you've
Look
already
at it from
built.
a project's perspective. Why would they not want to use a meme to market themselves better, right? The marketing is cheaper, it's more organic. It's you reach a global audience who have the same understanding of a meme, regardless of any other mode of communication, right? So
Yeah.
why is
Yeah,
it
you
so
don't.
looked down upon when projects use a meme to market themselves? Try to
Yeah.
understand their situation. They want to go global with the least amount of money.
Oh, 100%. You're going to
That's
convince me. Meme. Yeah. Sorry. What do you say?
Yeah, you still gotta be cautious. I represent a lot of meme coins, so I've got to defend them as well at some point. But of course, they also have to follow laws. Everything has to be done within legal parameters. There's no escaping law. There's no one in
That's
this
it.
world you can point a finger at and tell me, "Hey, Sid, this guy did the most illegal things possible and still got away with it." That never
Yeah.
happens.
No, that never happened. So that's a great way to wrap it up. And if there's anything to take away from this, everyone out there listening, remember what Sid said. There's no escaping the law. That's not fear tactic. That's just reality. But luckily, we have people like Sid out there helping us navigate this space together. Sid, it's been a pleasure. I could do this all night. I mean, there's so much more of your brain that I want to pick. So I do hope that you come back around. Do stay in touch. And shout out to the Degens team. Jonathan, I appreciate the opportunity. And Dex and Rachel, you guys are legends. I appreciate everyone keeping the questions moving. Everyone in the background behind the scenes. Everyone who's tuned in tonight to ask these questions. That's wonderful stuff. Very insightful. And I hope to do it again. And keep the questions coming even offline. You know where to reach Sid. You know where to reach myself. And we will be back next week for another episode. But I just wanted to say one more time, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I really appreciate the team for all the efforts and hosting me. I wish all of you have a good day ahead.
Yeah, likewise. And I'll call you if I get into trouble or if I start to get questionable about it. Okay.
For sure, always here to represent you, and I'm pretty sure you guys are doing a great job. Thanks to the music team once again.
Yeah.
And
they're
yeah,
awesome.
I hope you don't have to call me. I hope you never get into trouble.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And again, Sid helps everyone, whether you're building a startup, whether you're new to the space, whether you're already in trouble, just reach out. Thank you guys and have a good night. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.